First up, the move from coca to cocoa is starting to take root in parts of Peru. The shift from the raw material used to make the drug cocaine to the beans from which another addictive substance, chocolate, is made has faced resistance. Recent United Nations figures show Peru has overtaken Colombia as the world's #1 cocaine producer. But now the alternative crop of coffee is making an impact in some Peruvian communities which once dedicated themselves to supplying the lucrative international drug trade. America's Now contributing correspondent Dan Collyns recently visited a small farming community that is enthusiastically pursuing a sweet alternative.
Peru is the world's 9th producer of coffee. What it lacks in quantity, it makes up for in quality, winning international accolades. Julian Auca is tasting fresh coffee for its aroma, flavor, and aftertaste, a technique known as cupping. It's a long way from the coffee roasters of Portland or the Salon de Chocolat in Paris. But these Peruvian growers have also come a long way from producing just the beans to processing and marketing their own varieties and brands of chocolate and coffee. A decade ago, a coffee processing plant like this would have been inconceivable. Peruvian coffee was scorned by high-end buyers. Now, Peru is the first producer of organic and fair trade coffee. And these beans are the toast of the organic coffee world. It's taken decades to take root here on the lush slopes of Peru's eastern Andes as they drop into the Amazon basin. The high jungle terrain is perfect for growing coffee. It also happens to be ideal coca growing country, the fast-growing leaf used to make cocaine. The San Martin region was once the stronghold of the Shining Path, a violent guerrilla group that in the 1980s and 90s fought a brutal war against the government, leaving tens of thousands dead. To fund their war, the Shining Path forced peasants to grow coca plants to make and sell the very profitable cocaine. That reign of terror in this area continued until the capture of Artemio, one of the surviving leaders of the group, earlier this year. Jochen Wiese has headed the UN's Alternative Development Programme here for almost 3 decades.
On all these years, from idea 85 on up to 93, 94, Shining Paths and all our areas where we work was pretty difficult. So it's because of these problems, we had to adapt and we had to get the right approach. And the basic right approach in our work of alternative development was to organize the people, to work through farmer organizations. It was the only way to stay here and to work. Because there wasn't any other, as the corporation, state presence, there wasn't anything, just nothing.
But little by little, remote communities entrenched in the cocaine trade are giving way to the coffee and chocolate alternatives. In Bolson Cuchara, the community's decision to change crops seems to be like a religious conversion. Congregating in the village church, they listen in rapt silence as the community leader eulogizes the new path they've chosen. It's no surprise that Leandro Ocaña also doubles as the village pastor. Once a radical coca farming leader, he now says his transition to the alternative path is complete. Caught between the authorities who wanted to destroy their crops and the dangerous drug traffickers who purchased them, the district shunned the outside world, he explained.
We all want to be part of a legal economy. We don't want to live looking over our shoulders anymore, because not living legally is living in fear. Hiding from the authorities out there in the bush or under the bed. We want to enjoy absolute freedom. We want to sleep without having to lock the door. And that's something on which the whole community agrees. We've got to take care of our own security.
But today, the farmers talk enthusiastically about growing cocoa together as a community.
They're certainly seeing that as their opportunity to break away from coca. I mean, coca was certainly a cash crop when they were growing it, but also it was limiting their opportunities to have a community free of violence. Now we can see a stronger presence of the state, so you have a clear indication as well that education opportunities, stronger health services are coming in, the road is being improved. All of these services that were not present before are actually coming into full bloom right now.
Flavio Mirella heads the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime for Peru.
We're seeing the beginning of a major change here. We are dealing with an area which is completely outside, despite the fact that it was next door to one of the larger provincial centers in the country, and it was less than 40 kilometers away. And it was a haven for drug trafficking, for terrorism, but now the prospects are quite different, and I think we are witnessing a major shift, and it's thanks to the technical assistance that's being provided. It's thanks to a communal sense that they want to move on.
Felipe Cacique is feeling that shift after years of growing coca on his land. But it's no easy task to make the change to organic cocoa trees from which chocolate is made. The coca plants have drained his land of nutrients, and he's toiled to restore it with natural fertilizers. But still, Cacique says, at the end of the day, it's worth it.
I feel calmer working with cacao because it's a legal crop, not like coca, which is illegal, which means the authorities give you problems on the road to market. Sometimes they would confiscate your harvest, which was pretty annoying. With cacao, life is more peaceful. I can go wherever I want, and no one stops me.
And getting on the right side of the law has its benefits. The success of the alternative crops drive here has prompted the UNODC to call it the San Martin model. The latest UN figures show alternative crops close to 800 square kilometers now cover more of Peru than coca fields. What's more, the farmers who've opted for growing coffee or chocolate are beginning to feel the reward in their pockets. Household income for cooperative farmers quintupled in the last decade as international demand for Peruvian coffee and chocolate grows. Tocache was once a no-go zone, especially for the police. Now, thanks to better law enforcement, it's more peaceful, and cocoa is taking root. Since Europeans first turned it into chocolate, now here in its centre of origin, botanists are rediscovering Peru's original cocoa varieties, which have the potential to be turned into hundreds of new exquisite chocolate flavours for the most demanding palates.
Here you have a lot of genetic background that you don't have in other parts of the world, and so you can really find specialities of cocoa here in this region, which can create a special market and a special trademark, let's say, that only the people in Peru can have.
German botanist Julia Keek thinks Peru could be to chocolate what France is to wine.
With wine, when you have the same kind of grapes in different regions, they have a different flavor. And the same thing we have with cocoa.
Keek is doing research for Hamburg University and Germany's top chocolatier, Rausch.
Single origin chocolates from 10 different countries, and one of these countries is Peru. And so this is very important. They are the largest producer of only fine cocoa in Europe.
To replace the hardy coca leaf, the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, helped the Peruvians to introduce a type of cocoa of comparable productivity, a hybrid variety known as CCN 51.
The important thing for the people that work in the field, for the farmers, is the price. And when you have a special thing that you can sell, you can also achieve a better price. So at the end it's this, and of course what we don't want is to have a monoculture of one clone, let's say like CCN 51, yeah, And at the end, you destroy the rest of the varieties, and it's also a thing of protection of varieties. So that's what we also want. That's really important. And this is an important thing to change the thinking of the farmers too.
The International Cocoa Organization considers CCN 51 to be bulk rather than fine flavour chocolate. But increasingly, scientists are looking for more than just a good yield. The question now is whether Peru and Mother Nature can produce enough fine chocolate and coffee for the expanding worldwide demand. While the Europeans are still the biggest consumers of high-end chocolate, Jochen Wiese says Asia is catching up fast.
This is chocolate from 60% on as the purest cocoa. This is the newest market in Europe, and growing markets in India and China directly imitate this behavior, and they start with bitter, with fine chocolate. They don't start with the cheap chocolate, normal chocolate.
Meanwhile, the emerging economic giants are also beginning to switch their morning cup of tea for coffee. Investment bank Barclays Capital predicts China's coffee consumption will grow by as much as 40% annually for the next few years. That demand could provide just the push that Peru's jungle farmers need to drop their cocaine habit.
Other Latin American countries like Colombia allow herbicides to be sprayed onto coca fields from plains to kill plantings. Peru's coca extermination is done by hand, which takes time and allows the crop to grow. In addition, many tracts of land are closely guarded by armed guerrillas connected to the cartels. In order for Peru to become one of the world's leading fine flavor coffee and chocolate producers, more research needs to be done into finding out more about rare native varieties of the plant. No one knows for sure how many types of cocoa lie in Peru's forests and fields, but one thing is certain. With the Peruvian Amazon regarded by connoisseurs as the place genetic clusters have their genesis, Peru has the potential to fill the international market with a fountainhead of flavors.